think our listeners are going to find challenging, mentally challenging to process. We had talked earlier that you went back and actually re-engineered the outcome of the Civil War.
Yes.
So could I assume then that up to that point in time, say up to 1980, that the South had actually won the Civil War?
Well, see, that's on a different time plane, though. It's, you know, in a parallel universe. There, as we talked before, that we know that there are several parallel universes, and we can assume that, yeah, that, you know, did happen that way, but in a parallel universe.
But if you wanted to go back and change that, for instance, when you were in the early 80s and had undertaken that project to go back and change the outcome of the Civil War,
yeah.
What was at that point in time your reality? Was it that the South had won, or was it that the North had won?
I believe at that time that was the South had won, and that was one of the things that we had changed.
Okay, so you're saying only for the group of people that were involved in the project do they have any memory of that reality?
That's true.
All the rest of us, myself included,
have an alternate reality.
Have an alternate reality where all we can remember and experience is that the North had won.
That's correct.
That's hard to buy. But you're saying that's correct.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying you have to really expand your mind a little bit to think about that.
To expand on that and help you understand a little bit more, let's take you up to World War II. World War II, it had come down as Hitler had originally lost.
That's how I remember World War II.
Yeah.
That Hitler lost.
That was also changed to see what would happen, what the outcome would be if he had actually won.
So this was an experiment then, right?
It was an experiment.
What if Hitler won the war? That was a question someone asked.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was your job to go back with, I guess, a team of people.
There was several that went back.
Would you say it was a dozen?
It was a large project for that one.
Were they mostly Montauk boys that were sent back?
Well, actually, when you're changing, a history on such a grand scale involving wars, it involved, great numbers of people. But
thousands?
Well, in the case of the Montauk boys, yes, because those were more, like I said, instruments and tools that were used, where we were more of the controllers and players,
So what could have been done? I mean, in my mind, Hitler lost big time. I mean, what could have been done so that the tide of the war could have been changed?
Well, what I'll bring you up to date on that is it was just an experiment to see what would happen if he won. Did that and said, okay, great, we see what happened now. We need to change it back, okay, to make sure that he lost. And we can actually go back, and I actually have seen and held it where we actually had night scopes back then. And there again, that's something in the early 40s and mid 40s. I mean, who ever heard of a night scope? Infrared.
Didn't exist back then.
Yeah, but yet we can find evidence where they actually did exist. We had them, and they were built back then. We actually had a manufacturer who built them.
But I don't think night scopes alone would have changed the war.
No, but that was just one aspect. I mean, that helped in changing a lot of the aspects. There was a lot of political manipulation, along with battle manipulation. And giving new technologies. So yeah, it was that was my point with the night scope was
So that was one example. Is what
Yeah,
you're
it's
saying.
an example that by introducing the night scope, that of course not many people had. I mean, there was still something that it wasn't something that was just handed out to say a regular infantryman.
Mm-hmm.
That was not part of his normal gear.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same as they weren't handed automatic weapons. There were only small groups that got automatic weapons during this World War II.
Well, Larry, as I think about the task, undertaking this task,
Mm-hmm.
it would have had to been enormous to change the tide of the war, to Hitler winning it.
Yeah.
Where in the world would you get the resources to bear upon this project? I mean, because it took everything that the United States had
Mm-hmm.
to win the war. You would have to have had some resources equal to or above to what the United States had to change the tide of the war.
Well, therein lies a lot of our funding. We did have black project funding,
Mm-hmm.
but we also did things too, like we had purchased most of our stuff was liquid. We bought property, buildings, and that sort of thing, and then turned around and sold them, many years later, 20, 30 years later, and made 500 times, the profit. And so we got funding that way. Stole a lot of it. I'm sure you've heard about Nazi gold and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the stuff disappeared, and that's what it was. Is we had liquefied that we had stolen that liquefied asset and converted it over for us to use.
So, how many billions of dollars do you think you eventually had in your coffers?
Oh, geez. I mean, we were spending the stuff as fast as we could get it, so there's no way to account. But yeah, I mean, it goes into the billions, as far as
into the many billions.
Yeah.
Wow. But you're spending this kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think eyebrows were raised somewhere, saying, "Whoa,
No, because it's
got $1 billion order from this underground facility in Montauk. Maybe we need to check this out."
No, because this is a big country, and let's say a large corporation buys a boatload of computers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nobody really questions where that money came from.
No,
Yeah, they just, okay, we got this order for computers.
Yeah, they're just happy they got the order.
Yeah, and because you buy things like that, and you don't, you spread out because you need
Mm-hmm.
more than just one particular object. So yeah, as you're spreading things out, nobody really pays attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you talked about World War II changing the outcome and then going back and saying, let's change it back.
Mm-hmm.
What did you find that happened to this existence, which, say, we're in right now, had
Mm-hmm.
Hitler won? What would it have been like?
One of the things was he had several secret aircraft, which we do know of today, that we made sure that those never actually got off the ground. Those, in actuality, did. One of the things was he did develop a bomber that was able to reach America. And one of our ways of deterring that from, in the outcome was we made sure that that bomber was shot down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never rebuilt.
Okay, so that's what you did to help
bring things back.
bring things back. Now, but on their own?
But on their own.
Would you still lost the war?
Yeah, because what was is that bomber was able to make it to America. It was no longer experimental. They ran into full production, and so yeah, they had long-range bomber. The other thing was is that they were working on nuclear physics, and they were able to develop, the atomic bomb, and they were one of the world leaders in rocketry at the time. So yeah, they had their own delivery system also. And of course, they were also leaders in jet technology also, and jet propulsion. And so, yeah, they had jet fighters that couldn't even match anything that we had because, we had all props.
So, but on their own, assuming you didn't mess with space-time at all,
right?
Would Germany have won or lost the war?
No, they actually had lost originally.
Okay, they lost the war. However, in order for you to get them to participate in this experiment, where they had won the war, you were able to exploit things like their research in nuclear technology, their long-range bombers, their research in jet engines.
That's correct.
And boost that along a little bit, and then that helped them to win the war.
Right.
In your experiment.
Right.
Okay, but now when you went back, you had to shoot that bomber down, you had to destroy the jets, etc., right?
Right.
Okay, now it brings up a question. What happens if you make too many changes in a timeline?
Basically, and I believe we discussed this earlier, about, if you're going back to a certain point, you get to a point where you're hitting so many alternate realities that...
or changing them.
Changing them, that you hit one specific reality too many times, and you change it too many times in the same spot at the same time, that you actually get a fracture, which ends up destroying that particular portion of time.
Have you ever seen this happen?
No, I have not, but I've heard that it's come close to actually happening.
And these fractures, I mean, does your perception of what you're seeing in front of you change if you're in that reality?
Yeah, it does.
Would you see kind of holes in the...
Sure.
And
you can actually feel it a little bit sometimes. Maybe that's just me because, I was so much a part of the project and the process. But, yeah, I can feel